got a lot of people in my recent stream, which I just finished up with, wanted me to talk about what's going on with Stan Lee's daughter and what she had to say about Disney and Marvel executives. Now, JC Lee is again the daughter of Stan Lee, and according to TMZ, in a talk with TMZ, she has some interesting things to say, starting with Marvel and Disney seeking total control of my father's creations must be checked and balanced by others who, while still seeking to profit, have genuine respect for Stan Lee and his legacy. So she's talking about some of these characters. She also says whether it's Sony or someone else's, the continued evolution of Stan's characters and his legacy deserves multiple points of view. So it sounds like she doesn't like the idea, I guess, studio monopolizing the control of like a Spider-Man and being able to tell more so one perspective of it. Like if he exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, sounds like she's saying that maybe there should be other people that could be able to tell the story, such as Sony. But this was the big thing right here. When my father died, no one from Marvel or Disney reached out to me from day one. They have commoditized my father's work and never shown him or his legacy any respect or decency. That's interesting. She says, in the end, no one could have treated my father worse than Marvel and Disney executives. That's some hard hitting stuff. You can take that in whatever way that you may. But what she feels is that these executives have not done a legacy right, and more so was a piggyback. And they're trying to have their own sort of benefit from the characters that he obviously created. Now, this sort of talks about what I've discussed before, right? And I've discussed how nowadays it seems like in comic books, these are being used, characters that Stan Lee created are being more so used to advance their own political and social views, or to tell stories that don't necessarily respect the legacy of the character. Or a little bit of both, right? I've made this argument just by looking at the writing style, and for example, with the political and the social stuff. Like Stan Lee, I showed a video on this channel where went him himself saying, like, if I did a social issue, I put it in underlaying the plot. Never would I beat that reader over the head with it or anything like that. But it seems like a lot of writers nowadays want to do their own thing, and I think that's sort of representative. It more so represents that approach and individuals wanting to use it for their own personal. It's a piggyback, right? It's sort of like that. Even with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the writer I talked about, the screenwriter who admitted before she worked with Marvel, she didn't give a shit about superheroes, and then she had all these things about her political and social ideology that she was admitting that she wanted to use the clout given to her in terms of who she works with to really advance those positions, right? She admits that. This is her. Some of the things JC is saying sort of amplifies a bit of what I'm saying. Now, I know she's not specifically talking about some of the stuff that I talk. I'm just using that as an example. But from her, it seems like, and that's interesting, like that you would think that if anything, Marvel and Disney would reach out to the damn daughter, the living daughter of a great like Stan Lee, and be like, hey man, would you like some words? We can maybe get it published. If anybody knew him, you knew him, right? And the fact that they didn't even reach out, like she's saying that, and if that's true, because she's saying they didn't even reach out at all. They of course, hey, R.I.P. Stan Lee, but she's saying like they didn't. The executives never showed her, or she's saying Marvel and Disney never showed him, Stan Lee that is, any respect or decency. And she said specifically to Disney executives, she said no one could treat them worse. So obviously there were some things that were done in that regards. But I do think it amplifies some of what I was saying. And I think that this has brought out a lot of interesting people, the whole Sony thing. because people, at least I talked about this in stream, by the way, and how you get these people that corporate hating, leftists who, hey, people have too money, corporations, and they're literally shilling for Disney over the Spider-Man thing because they're so emotionally attached to this goofy ass version of Spider-Man, which is a goofy ass, it's not Spider-Man, it's only Spider-Man in skin, like in his suit. Really, he's just Iron Man Jr. That's all he is. Not Spider-Man. No, but Flash is not Flash. MJ's, tokenized MJ. The whole Aunt May. That's, come on, man. Like, this is a goofy version of Spider-Man. It's not accurate by any means, but for them to be that emotionally attached to him, so they shield for Disney, the same people that be like corporations. It just goes to show they'll pick and choose, including some of these actors, these NPC ass actors. Well, they'll pick and choose who, or when it's okay, right? This is why they're champagne socialists, those NPC actors, because they'll be like, oh, well, it's because it hurts their bottom line. They'll be like, oh, well, what the fuck? We should maintain the rights, right? Give us back the character, right? We should maintain the rights. These be the same people who don't live anywhere near y'all. They don't fuck with y'all. They only show up when they're paid to show up. Which is nothing wrong with that. I just always found it ironic these guys would go buck dance for these sort of left-leaning people in politics from a social standpoint as well, even though they don't, they don't play by the same rules. This is why I don't understand why anybody would take them serious when they say stuff like that. But nonetheless, kind of went on a tangent there. That's fine. That's what we do here on Young Wolf 59's channel. If this is true, it just shows how fucked up this situation is. I've heard stories about the treatment of Stan Lee, and if it's really fucked up how they're doing some of this. And I do believe that from a legacy standpoint, certainly even with some of these characters, the direction that they're going is questionable, is not an accurate, it's not doing the characters justice. Some of them, that is. But again, I like that she highlighted the executives because that's where it starts, right? Yeah, they can pick up these writers and all that, but there's people from an executive standpoint that have to green light this, that allow this shit to happen, that allow people to try to use these characters just to advance their own personal careers and put forth their own social political views, or as opposed to actually just honoring the legacy of the actual characters that were created. This is interesting, man. So what do you guys think? I know this is music to some of y'all's ears because a lot of folks have a lot of issues with Disney. So what do you guys think about JC's parting words, if you will?